What is happening, guys? Chris from NGG here, and welcome to the second episode of our countdown to the North American International Championships mini segment. Today I will be going over the Zoroark Lycanroc deck that has been really competing heavily this format, going toe-to-toe with Malamar and Buzzrock, which I covered last time on the channel. So I'm going to run through a sort of example deck list, talk about choices you can play for the deck, basically how it plays out, how to approach the matchups, all that good stuff, so you can either play it or play against it going into the North American Championships. So starting off, we have obviously 4 Zoroark, 4 Zoroark. Even in a format that is heavily fighting oriented, Zoroark still lingers about the top cut, still might even be considered by some as the best deck of this format, simply because 210 HP, colourless attack that can go all the way up to 150, 170 with a Kukui, which we are playing, but mostly it is reliable, non-supporter draw, i.e. you can use it at near enough any stage in the game, so long as you have at least one card in your hand, whereas stuff like a Rangaroo or Octillery needs your hand to be below a certain limit to use it, whereas Zoroark can use it near enough at any time. It also allows you to pitch some dead cards in some matchups, or cards you do not want to be end into in the late game, or cards you don't want to find again through Cynthia. So all those things together just makes Zoroark an absolute powerhouse of every format, regardless of its weakness to fighting. It will always be played, in my opinion, and it's getting played here. So 4 of it, I'm partnering it is, as I covered in the last video, probably the most played card of the format is Lycanroc GX. What it does is when it evolves, you get to Gust of Wind up your one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and replace it with their actives without using your supporter, which is just insane. So you've got Zoroark that gives you draw cards without using your supporter, and now you've got a Guzma, sort of Lysander type Pokemon without the use of your supporter. So both of those together just make for one hell of a powerful combination. And of course they both share the use of DCE, because Claw Slash for 1 fighting and a DCE will be doing you 110 worth of damage. Play Strong Energy, so that goes up to 130, which hits some crucial knockouts, especially 2 shots. It's taking a knockout on opposing Zoroarks, which is just huge. And Dangerous Rogue is probably the GX attack of the format. It does 50 for each bench Pokemon your opponent has. Zoroark and Malamar both need their bench, and they can't really afford to play around this card, so to speak. If they do, that's fine, you punish them anyway for having a low bench, but if they don't, you of course punish them with Dangerous Rogue anyway. And then basically after that, you're playing a lot of techs. For different matchups, you can play, for example, the Baby Buzzwole for the Mirror. When you go down, or when your opponent goes down to 4, i.e. they've taken a knockout on your Zoroark, or they've taken a knockout on your Lycanroc via Golisopod or something like that, you can Sledgehammer, maybe Guzma out a Zoroark, take a knockout on that. It's just a very, very strong card. If the Mirror, if you feel like you need more for the Mirror, Buzzwole can definitely be a consideration. And the Psychic Attackers, one of my favourite ones in this deck is Mew-EX, and you're probably thinking that doesn't seem that very good against Buzzwole now because of Baby Buzzwole, and to a certain degree you're right. It used to be really easy to step around the Sledgehammer because of Buzzwole playing lots of GXs, like multiple Buzzwole GX, or committing the Lycanroc down, or the Lycanroc down early, or the Regirock, or Tapu Lele. So it was pretty easy for you to turn off Sledgehammer's full whack of taking a knockout on a 1 prize attacker, then following it up by taking 2 prizes. Sledgehammer will only be doing 30 plus all the boosts I've got, so it's never really returned KOing a Mew-EX. However, now they're playing less GXs and EXs, so Sledgehammer probably will be returning KO a Mew-EX, so you need to be careful using it. But most of the time they do need 3 energies to take a knockout on it, so just responding with even multiple Mew-EX can be an absolute devastation to the Buzzwole player. So it's probably the best Psychic Attacker right now for this deck, given how aggressive it is and how much it just needs to basically put Buzzwole off committing too many energy to one Buzzwole. And speaking of committing too much energy, you have Mewtwo to punish the Buzzwole players will do that too. So, and this one doesn't give away 2 prizes and is a lot more bulky. It will survive a non-boosted Sledgehammer, for example, and it can just linger in there pretty strong. And then lastly, you're playing as many copies of Tapu Lele as you please. 3 is usually the best number, not too much, not too little. It is mostly there for the turn 1 Bridget, but finding the Guzma or the Sycamore or stuff like that is really, really good. And of course, it makes Riot Speeding do more damage, so it is a pretty crucial card. And then the thing with Zoroark is you play lots and lots and lots of tech cards, even the matchups that they are not useful in. You've got the Zoroark to trade them away, which is just why the deck is that good, because it doesn't really run any bricks. That's why it can run multiple copies of Bridget, because even if you, let's see if I can find Bridget here, even if you draw it after, there it is, sorry, even if you draw it after the real turn of use, it's fine because it becomes trade fodder. Yes, you could maybe draw into it late game in or whatever, but it's definitely worth the risk. 100%. So that's why you can play up to 4 copies of Bridget if you want. And then, like I said, with the Pokemon, it's just a lot of text after. Enhanced Hammer to take off strong energies, especially on the baby Buzzwoles, because it does become really hard for them to return KO on your Mew EX. And then Field Blower for turning off Garbatoxin. You have this is a really crucial tech in my opinion, multi-switch. It just allows you to pivot attackers a lot easier than having to just hard draw into the Puzzle of Time. Allows you to commit the DCE to a Zoroark, to Riot Speeding, to then Floatstone Retreat into Mew EX, multi-switch the same DCE onto it and continue attacking, like I said, without having to hard draw into the Puzzle of Time, which is probably some of the best cards in the deck. If you play 2 of them together, which you're usually hoping to do, you very, very rarely use the first effect. You have to be in a pretty bad spot to do that. If you play them together, you get to target 2 cards in your discard and add them straight to your hand. So a good play with that is Mallow. It allows you to stack 2 cards at the top of your deck. Zoroark, discard 1, draw 2. And then basically Mallow becomes any 2 cards in your discard pile, which is just very strong. Most Zoroark decks play Evo Soda. However, seeing as Evo Soda does not trigger Bloodthirsty Eyes on the Lycanroc, you play Timer Ball. Yes, it's kind of risky. You have a 75% chance of you only getting 1 Pokemon, 25% chance of you getting none. However, there is also a 25% chance of you getting 2, which is just like all coin flip items in the game right now. It is just an absolute momentum swing if they hit. If they don't, fine, fair enough, continue on as normal. But Timer Ball hitting 2 is just such a momentum swing. Allows you to put down 2 Zoroark, or allows you to find the Lycanroc and the Zoroark just to start putting the pressure on your opponent and basically seeing the game out from there. Parallel City is another tech. Because as the same thing with Dangerous Rogue, bench space is really, really good, or really, really important, should I say. So limiting this, yes, it does limit your Dangerous Rogue damage output, but that is fine, because say you can Bloodthirsty Eyes out of Tapu Lele, and then drop the Parallel City, forcing your opponent to take out 2 really important cards, because they usually would discard the Tapu Lele, but this is forcing them to discard something that's actually important. And then you can still Dangerous Rogue with a strong energy attack to take the damage, or take the knockout on the Tapu Lele. So Parallel City is still incredibly useful in the deck, regardless of how much it limits your damage output. And then after that is just as many different ratios of supporters as you feel is necessary. For example, there is 2 Guzma here because of Lycanroc. Lycanroc is Guzma, so you can play less of it. Then you're playing stuff like Sycamore and Cynthia for your draw supporters. Professor Kukui helps a lot of math that you usually couldn't really hit. It's particularly useful with the Lycanroc. Hitting the extra damage on the Tapu Lele is really important as well. But Professor Kukui is it's a combo piece, so being able to retrieve it off puzzle time or even set yourself up for next turn with Mallow is really important for the deck. 3 copies of N, you can play as many copies of N as you want, but this does become a win condition in the late game, particularly against the Buzzrock variants. If you Bloodthirsty Eyes up the artillery and then knock it out, your opponent really has to draw well to respond to that. And then you're playing 2 Choice Band at the minute, 2 Floatstone, just to pivot your attackers, especially good with multi-switch. And then you can play 4 to 2 Strong Energy. It just depends how much Enhanced Hammer is in the variant, or if you're scared of Circuitry, which I guess could happen. You can shift the ratios about like that. So that's the sort of deck I have at the minute. But one of the cards I'm really looking at, I'll get it for you now, in the deck. It was played at Sheffield, and the worst matchup for this deck is definitely the Buzzrock deck, and I believe this card helps quite a lot. Discard any stadium card in play. If you do, your opponent discards 3 cards from his or her hand. So what I was saying there, instead of ending Bloodthirsty Eyes and killing the artillery, you instead delinquent Bloodthirsty Eyes the artillery and kill it. So if they have less cards than 3, they don't get a choice, or sorry, spot on 3 or less, they don't get a choice. Discard Troll Hand, take out the artillery, and they are in top deck mode, which really should be the game. If you play it right, it really should be the game. So that's the deck, guys. I'm going to talk about matchups now against Buzzrock. It is, I would say, about, depending on how many psychic attackers you play, I say it's about 55-45 to Buzzrock, simply because they take away your draw engine in Zoroark, which does become pretty harsh. But like I said, if you play multiple copies of MewX, multiple copies of Mewtwo, you probably could get it down to 50-50. You could play Latios from Shining Legends as well, which is just basically Jet Punch in Psychic form, needing a DCA instead of a fighting. Against Malamar, this is heavily favoured, simply because they cannot commit the Dawn Wings down because of the Zoroark. They're just giving you 2 free prizes, and if you've ever played Malamar or even played against it, you'll realise just how important Dawn Wings is to the strategy, because it is the card, combined with Flowstone, that allows the deck to charge up its attackers every single turn and consistently chain attacks onto you. Taking that out makes they have to draw really lucky, find the base strings every single time, or else they straight out lose. So I say that matchup is a good 65-35, 70-30, stuff like that. I believe it is heavily favoured towards you, especially with Lycanroc as well. That's just the cherry on top. Playing around Dangerous Rogue, Bloodthirsty Eyes, out the engage, that is what you do. You target them down so they simply just cannot charge up any attackers at all, cannot commit the Dawn Wings Necrozma, and then you just win out from there. The mirror becomes completely down to who plays it better and who has the better tech. Stuff like the Buzzwole does become pretty well in there. Unfortunately, there's no real grass attacker you can play that is generic, so can't really take out the Lycanrocs. You just sort of have to play around Dangerous Rogue yourself and take out as many Zoroarks as you can. Other matchups like Zoropod, I think Zoropod is 50-50. Zoropod 50-50 is everything. You take knockouts on their Zoroarks, whereas they take knockouts on your Lycanrocs. They have Acerola to scoop up their Zoroarks. You do not, unless you want to play a couple of copies of it. So it does become really complex. It is really a skillful mirror, and just playing it well is heavily rewarded. Stuff like Greninja is kind of easy to play. You can play Giratina if you feel that matchup is, you're not confident with that matchup, but Claw Slashing and Dangerous Roguing, even Riotous Beating with the help of stuff like Kukui is really, really good. Parallel City as well, especially, is key for that matchup. And that's all the matchups off the top of my head I can really think of. If you come up with any more and you're not sure how to play them, don't feel bad about messaging me or commenting on the video. I will respond as soon as I can. But I hope you enjoyed the deck, guys. Let me know what you think of the deck. Are you considering it for the North American International Championships? I want to hear all your thoughts, all that good stuff. So see you next guy. This is Chris from NCG signing out.